Hello, dear friends. This news is very curious, although I do not identify with these beliefs. Opinion piece. Witches against Taliban. All the witches of the world are called together. They want to organize a great world ritual. The campaign is going viral on social networks. Their spells are derived from the Book of Shadows. In 2018, they performed a ritual against President Trump. Wicca is a neo-pagan religion linked to witchcraft. They worship the moon goddess and the hot god because they are duotheists. Cash shortage leaves Afghanistan in dire straits. Prices soar in Afghanistan as people queue up at banks. US may cooperate with Taliban to fight Islamic State. Trump warns cryptocurrency investors of potential disaster. Let's start. Organizing a major worldwide witch ritual against the Taliban through the use of magic is the goal of a Reddit witchcraft forum user in a post addressed to the forum's more than 254,000 members. The call seeks to gather all available sorcerers in the world to take on the extremist organization that has no respect for women's rights following its rapid conquest of Afghanistan. The convocation is looking for people who are wise in this type of magic in order to gather against the Taliban as many magical forces as possible. In quotes, I am looking to organize a counterattack against the Taliban forces in Afghanistan right now, the users wrote. No one has gathered yet, and I am looking for people who are wiser than me in this kind of magic. I just want as many forces as possible to work against them. Close quotes. Definition. A witch is a female sorceress supposedly endowed with magical powers in certain cultures who supposedly practices witchcraft. In the popular lore of the Western world, the representation of a witch is associated today with that of a woman with the ability to fly mounted on a broom, as well as with the coven and with witch hunting. Some associate the witch with the seer or clairvoyant, others with the shaman, who is a specialist in communication with the powers of nature and with death, while others associate him or her with a tribal witch more oriented to the healing of the sick of the body and soul, etc. The witch is a recurrent character of the contemporary imagination, which endures and is affirmed thanks to tales, novels, movies, as well as through certain popular festivals and their masks. Many witches today still practice witchcraft. Their spells and incantations are sometimes derived from the Book of Shadows, a 20th century collection of wisdom and witchcraft. Today's witchcraft spells are generally used to prevent someone from doing evil or causing harm to others. Occasionally, however, witches join together to deal with a danger that affects their fellow men. Polemic. The publication quickly sparked widespread debate about the usefulness of such a mega ritual, with some warning that the Taliban could respond with incantations and rituals of their own. Apparently, the Taliban are very spiritually aware and routinely take steps to protect themselves and awaken magic. They have incantations and rituals of their own that, at the very least, can neutralize those of the West, and at West they can cause damage to our spiritual selves. Other experts in the field argue that Western spells may fall short given the magical history of Asian cultures, which could skew even the most complex rituals. But some believe that the massive ritual could result in a catastrophe. Regardless of the adverse effects, the campaign is going viral on social media, and Discord channel has even been created to prepare witches for the big ritual. This is not the first time witches from around the world have united for a common goal. A group of witches gathered in 2018 at the popular occult bookstore Catalan in Brooklyn, New York, to perform a large black magic ritual against President Trump, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and Republican Senator Mitch McConnell. The ritual, which was streamed live on Facebook and Instagram, was also directed at all rapists and the patriarchy that encourages, rewards, and protects them. Organizers said the ritual was an act of resistance in the wake of the controversy over sexual assault allegations against Kavanaugh. The end result we already know. Meditation for Afghanistan. First, use your own technique to bring yourself to a state of relaxed awareness. Second, state your intention to bring peace and healing to the situations in Afghanistan. Third, call upon the violet flame from its primary source to place a circle of protection around you during and after the meditation. Ask it to transmute anything that doesn't serve to the light. Fourth, visualize a pile of pink light emanating from the galactic central sun and descending through your body to the center of the earth. Fifth, visualize this light flowing through your heart and then through your hands directly to everyone in Afghanistan, harmonizing everyone and bringing peace. Let the pink light then flow forward, healing all other conflicts in the world. Sixth, ask the presence of the Divine Feminine to direct the energies of the Goddess, peace and harmony to all in Afghanistan. Let these energies flow forward and heal all other conflicts throughout the world. Allow these energies to continue to flow through your heart and then through your hands into these situations for a few minutes. Seventh, Goddess wants peace, and peace it shall be, victory of the light. A pagan religion. Wicca is a neo-pagan religion linked to witchcraft and other ancient religions popularized from 1954 by the British Gerald B. Gardner as a renaissance of the light. Gardner, as a revival of the ancient religion of witchcraft, the author being initiated by a British group he claimed to have found in the New Forest area. It was developed in England during the first half of the 20th century and presented to the public in 1954 by Gerald Gardner, a retired British civil servant who claimed to have discovered an ancient pagan religion. It is based on a set of diverse pagan beliefs and hermetic practices of the 20th century for its theological structure and ritual practice. It has no central authority. The traditions are based on beliefs, principles and practices originally outlined between 1940s and 1950s by Gartnett and Doreen Valiente, both in published books and in secret written and oral teachings shared with its initiates. Wicca is duotheistic, worshipping a goddess and a god seen as the moon goddess and the witch god respectively. They can be identified with different pagan deities from various historical pantheons. For this reason, the divinities are sometimes referred to as the great goddess and the great horned god, with the adjective great connoting a deity that contains many other deities within its own nature. These two deities are sometimes seen as facets of a large pantheistic deity, which is considered to be an impersonal force or process rather than a personal deity. While duotheism or bitheism is traditional in Wicca, Wiccan beliefs are so broad as to range from polytheism to pantheism or monism to monotheism of the goddess. Wicca celebrations encompass both the cycles of the moon, known as Esbats and commonly associated with the female deity, and the cycles of the sun, seasonal festivals known as Sabbats and commonly associated with the horned goat, male deity. Wicca often involves the ritual practice of magic, although it is not always necessary. And this is the subject. Afghanistan. Lack of cash leaves Afghanistan in dire straits. Thousands of Afghans gathered Wednesday for another day outside Kabul's few open banks to try to withdraw some cash from their accounts amid a dramatic cash crunch with tight restrictions since the Taliban regained power in Afghanistan on August 15th. Chaos and humanitarian crisis. Afghanistan's new Taliban rulers struggled to keep the country running after the final withdrawal of US forces, with foreign donors alarmed by a looming humanitarian crisis. In an administrative vacuum, prices have soared and crowds line up as banks to withdraw cash. Qatari jet with technical team lands in Kabul. Qatari technical teams have landed at Kabul airport to discuss resuming operations after it was damaged during the recent US and NATO evacuations. Taliban ambushed. The Taliban have lost 2,500 guerrillas and 1,000 wounded in the Panjshir Valley after being ambushed by Northern Alliance resistance forces. According to experts, the rebel forces could use drones to determine the likely escape points of the militants, as so far every attack was interrupted by an ambush. Humanitarian catastrophe. Mass immigration of Afghans to Iran en route to Europe. Exodus across the desert as Afghans flee through Pakistan to Iran. It is believed that the next stop could be Turkey, more than 1,000 miles away, and then to the European Union. Plane loads of fleeing Afghans, including journalists, arrived in Mexico. A plane carrying 175 Afghans fleeing their strife-torn homeland arrived in Mexico on Tuesday night, on one of the last flights to leave Kabul on the day US forces completed a withdrawal that left Islamist Taliban militants in control of the country. United Nations chiefs warns of humanitarian catastrophe in Afghanistan. Antonio Guterres says nearly half of Afghanistan's population needs urgent help to survive after Taliban takeover. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres warned of an impending humanitarian catastrophe in Afghanistan as he urged countries to provide emergency funds following the Taliban's total seizure of power. Guterres on Tuesday expressed his grave concern about the deepening humanitarian and economic crisis in the country, adding that basic services were threatening to collapse completely. Pakistan is concerned about security threats in neighboring Afghanistan. There is growing concern about Pakistani officials about security in neighboring Afghanistan as the Taliban attempts to form a government and stabilize the country following the departure of US and other foreign forces. Indian Kashmiri separatist leader dies, troops deployed in Srinagar. Veteran Indian Kashmiri separatist politician Syed Ali Shah Gilani died Wednesday night in Srinagar, prompting authorities to deploy troops in the city and shut down the internet as a precautionary measure. Police said he was 91 years old. Reaction. We are abandoning US citizens. US abandoned most of its Afghan allies who applied for visas to escape the country. The US abandoned a large number of Afghan allies who applied for visas to escape their country under the rule of the Islamist Taliban movement, the Wall Street Journal reported, citing a senior State Department official. Top US general shares pain anger after Afghanistan failure. The top US general said Wednesday he shared the pain, anger and mixed emotions of many in the army after the US completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, which included an evacuation effort that cost the lives of 30 military personnel. We are abandoning US citizens, said an Army colonel assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division, said in a coded text message Sunday to Michael Young, who disclosed the message to Just the News. Young said a group of Americans were marooned at the Kabul airport, begging for help when the military told them they were done with evacuations. We had them out there waving their passport, shouting, "I am American," Young said Tuesday. In quotes, "Our own army turned people away from the gate," said Young, a former Special Forces soldier and war correspondent. The stranded Americans eventually dispersed to safe houses to avoid being captured by the Taliban. Congressman missing after mission to rescue 5 Americans in Afghanistan. A Republican member of Congress is missing after saying he was trying to save 5 US citizens from Afghanistan, according to a Washington Post report. Officials told the Post that the whereabouts of Republican Mark Wayne Mullin of Oklahoma are unknown. US seeks land routes to continue Afghan evacuations. Officials welcome efforts by Turkey and Qatar to help reopen airport in Kabul after troop withdrawal. The US is exploring ways to evacuate US citizens and Afghan allies seeking to leave Afghanistan, including via land routes, US officials said Wednesday, reaffirming a commitment to help eligible people who were not airlifted. The blaming game for Afghanistan's failures begins. A week after the evacuation of Kabul, the military was forced to take a drastic step, stopping all flights from Hamid Karzai International Airport for 7 hours because there was nowhere for the evacuees to go. US doesn't rule out cooperating with Taliban to fight Islamic State. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Mark Milley, during a press conference at the Pentagon on Wednesday, hinted at the possibility of coordination of US forces with the Taliban to fight Islamic State terrorists. Germany advocates talks with the Taliban as the only solution to stabilize Afghanistan. In quotes, I personally believe that there is no way to avoid talks with the Taliban, on the one hand because we have to solve practical problems such as the continued operation of the airport, and on the other hand because we simply cannot afford instability in Afghanistan, said German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas. Finance. Trump warns cryptocurrency investors of potential disaster. Former President Trump has warned cryptocurrency holders of the potential disaster that awaits them and called on them to invest in the national currency. The Republican businessman said in statements to Fox Business that investing in cryptocurrencies, whether Bitcoin, Ether or others, is hurting the US currency. The former president denied that he was investments in cryptocurrencies and assured that digital assets could be a counterfeit. A fake cryptocurrency trader in Venezuela fakes his own kidnapping to steal more than $1 million in bitcoins. A 23-year-old young man who pretended to be a financial operator of cryptocurrencies in Venezuela would have simulated his own kidnapping to steal more than $1 million in bitcoins through the digital platform Binance. He was identified as Andrés Jesús dos Santos Hernández and is currently wanted for the alleged crimes of money laundering and swindling. Wall Street climbs to new heights, boosted by tech stocks. Wall Street's major indexes continue to advance, with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq hitting record highs on Wednesday, as buying in new tech stocks combined with hopes that the Federal Reserve would keep the stimulus tabs open after weaker than expected private payrolls data. 53% of the world's population has no access to social protection. The International Labour Organization has denounced this Wednesday through a report that more than 4 billion people have no access to any social protection, despite the fact that these have suffered an unprecedented expansion in recent years due to the crisis. El Salvador. El Salvador's parliament approves a millionaire trust fund for the Bitcoin law. El Salvador's Legislative Assembly approved a $150 million trust fund for the implementation of the Bitcoin law, which will come into force on September 7th. Salvadorans worry about the imminent adoption of Bitcoin. In the main market of El Salvador's capital, traders complain that with a week to go before Bitcoin becomes legal tender, no official has come to explain how it will work or what benefits it could bring. Spain. 3 more flights with 372 Afghan refugees land in Rota. Flights from Kabul continue to arrive with refugees, despite the final withdrawal of US troops from the Afghan capital. This Wednesday, the military port of Rota in Cadiz welcomes 3 more planes from the US with 372 evacuees. Spanish Special Operations soldier in Kabul, in quotes, "I won't forget the smell or the screams pleading. We have to get them out of there." In quotes, "In a short time, we went from being with our families in the comfort of our home to pulling half-naked children out of a sewage canal." This is how one of the members of the Special Operations team that took part in the Spanish evacuation operation in Afghanistan relates his experience in Kabul. Storm lashes Spain. An intense rainstorm of Wednesday wreaked havoc in several parts of Spain, causing severe flooding in some towns, leaving thousands of people without power and forcing the closure of some roads and rail links. The storm has left around 9,000 lightning strikes and heavy rains in part of the community of Madrid, Castilla-La Mancha, Castilla y León, and Navarra. The price of electricity in Spain continues to soar and again beats its historical record. The price of electricity reached its historical record on Wednesday in this country, 1,032.47 euros per megawatt hour, reaching 1,039.95 euros at certain times of the night. For this Thursday, September 2nd, the average price of electricity in the wholesale market will be 140.23 per megawatt hour, breaking the record of the 4th consecutive day, never seen before. More than 43,000 Spaniards participate in the selection processes of 9,742 positions for the Army. The Ministry of Defense has called 51 selection processes for Army personnel in which 43,000 candidates are participating and competing for a total of 9,742 positions. 71% of Spanish families tend to grandparents to care for their children. 71% of Spanish families tend to grandparents to care for their children, and 49% of those surveyed say they would not be able to continue with their working day if they didn't have to have the help of their elderly relatives in their day-to-day lives, according to a survey by the Alares Foundation. Events. Crews saved California town near Lake Tahoe South Lake Tahoe was smoky and largely deserted Wednesday after crews battled a large wildfire, leaving the Californian resort town unscathed as flames raced toward Nevada. Colorado cops, EMTs, charged in black man's death. 3 Colorado police officers and 2 paramedics have been criminally charged in the death of Elijah McLean, a black man who died in 2019 after he was subdued and injected with a sedative, the state attorney general said Wednesday. Near total Texas abortion ban goes into effect. Texas enacted the nation's strictest anti-abortion law Wednesday after the U.S. Supreme Court refused to act on a request by abortion rights groups to block the law banning the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Canada's Summer from Hell puts climate change at forefront of election. Canadians are demanding decisive action from leaders to address climate change after a summer of extreme weather intensified environmental concerns, making it the #1 issue in September's early election, polling data show. Gunmen seized more than 70 secondary school students in northwestern Nigeria. Nigerian police say gunmen have abducted more than 70 students in the country northwest in the latest in a series of school attacks on pupils. Stay in your center. Message from Buddha. Formal meditation doesn't appeal to everyone, but there are many ways to meditate. One can be in a meditative state while doing the gardening that you are so passionate about, or when you go to a walk in nature as a form of active meditation, doing something that brings you to a higher spiritual state. That happens when you feel passionate about any task that excites you the most. That is when you are in your center, your place which is your sacred space. It is from that space that you will be able to respond to situations from a more neutral perspective, and you will feel as if you are one with everything. The main doctrine of what is called Buddhism is the concept of non-attachment, which is very much like feeling neutral about the things that are happening in your life. If you are able to do that, then you are not attaching your emotions to that particular situation. Staying neutral also allows you to be better able to see both sides of the situation, which allows for a more collaborative dialogue rather than a heated argument. So, the next time you find yourself in the middle of an intense situation, and you feel like lashing out in anger or reacting defensively, teach yourself to take 3-second break at that moment, so that you can try to respond in the least emotional and most neutral way possible. I suggest you try to make those 3 seconds last as long as possible, taking deep breaths to allow your emotions to calm down. This journey on earth is very challenging, but it can also reap great rewards if you learn to approach from your soul center your daily life and all the various experiences. Life is right in front of you for those who want to learn from it and continue to evolve, and also help others to find their center along the way. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, your friends.